So with the visible given to you, now the very first thing we're going to be looking into is how am I going to be understanding this visible, right? So any visible link that is given to you, you're going to go and then open that link in in a browser, let's say. So when you open that link, like what you are seeing in here, if I take this link and open this link in a browser, so here I go and then paste it and open it, let's say, in a browser. So that's what I have done. I am opening it in a browser. The intent or the objective or the goal of reading a visual document is to find out basic three major things about any web service, A, B, and C. And your A basically is going to give you the address of this web service, because the address of the web service is important, because using the address you will navigate yourself to the location of this web service, and then you will be interacting with the B's and C's. And what is the B and the C? Basically, it's the binding and the contract. Now, what exactly is the binding? What exactly is the contract? And where can I find the address of this web service inside the visual document? And that all these three answers, or rather questions, will be answered once we get to see about this document. So once I type the URL, hit enter, it is going to show me this huge document. Now, when I look at this huge document, I'm like sort of like lost in it, because I don't know where to begin with. So this is exactly what you're going to be doing. So it is in its expand mode right now. So if I do that, it's in a collapse mode. Now it's in the expanded mode. So what you should be doing is inside this, what you see inside this is all XML, because WSDL is written in XML. So if I go back in here and if I have to say something about WSDL, WSDL is an XML document. So what is an XML document? An XML document is something that an XML document is something that has data or information, right, in the form of elements, right? So now you would say in the form of elements. When we say that it's this XML document is something that has data in the form of elements. So how do you represent data in the form of elements? And first of all, what is an element? Anything which is enclosed into less than and a greater than can be referred to as an element. So let's say if I put in there things like let's say something like that. So this is an element, right? Now, what exactly that does, we don't know what exactly that does, at least not right now, but eventually we'll get to know about it. But it is an element. So information is, or the data is represented in a document enclosed in elements. Now, there is another language people might have come across, and that language is called an HTML language. HTML language again is a language of tags. So this less than and greater than, this is also referred to as a tag or plural tags. So tags in HTML are predefined. When you say predefined, meaning that they have a specific meaning. So there is a tag called body tag, and then there is a tag called, let's say, title tag. There is a tag called head tag. There is a tag called paragraph tag. There's a tag called table tag, and then many more, right? Like something like image and something like font. Now, if you know HTML, then you know that each of these tags, they mean something. So in HTML, there are about 80 plus, 80 plus tags. Each tag has a certain behavior attached to it, or it represents something, it means something. So they are predefined. The behavior of that tag is predefined. Say, for instance, if you want to insert an image or a picture or something that is a visual, right? Your photo, if you want to insert it on your web page, then basically you do that by using something called an image tag. If you want to send, let's say, I don't know, an email to somebody, there is something like an anchor tag, an href tag. That tag is used to provide as a link and as an email and stuff like that. So now we're not going to be learning HTML here, but it's basically brought in to show you so that you can have an idea about the difference between an XML and HTML. HTML has these tags as predefined. In XML, you don't have anything predefined. So I can literally have let's say that, right? And I can have that, and I can have let's say I don't know, as an example, that now for me, I know what these things they mean, right? Because I'm looking at it here, and then I type that. Now, if I ask, for example, Paul, if I ask Paul, what is your understanding about this, right? Or what is your understanding about that? He might say, I don't know, maybe it looks like the name of a city, or it could be like a mountain, or it could be a ray of light, or it could be some fruit. So he's basically guessing it, right? Or he might guess it right and say that, oh, it looks like somebody's name, right? So if we don't know, just having something here, some data here, right? Having some data, and if that data is not properly represented, we don't know what that data is. So if I want to describe this data in XML, we are allowed to use some elements like this, right? And here I can say that this is let's say that, and if this is an element now, an element describes this data. So the data was Kiran, and we are describing that by prefixing it with an element, and that now tells that this is a tester, right? So when you enclose your data within an element, there are certain rules that you have to follow. If you open an element, you have to go and you have to close that element. The way you close the element is with a forward slash. So now it is telling you that Kiran is a tester. I could do the same here for Paul and say that Paul is a tester. If I do that and do this and say that Rama is a tester. Now, if you look into these three, what's wrong with it? There's something wrong with it. What is wrong here is there are certain rules, an XML document. If I put this into a document, that document is referred to as an XML document. There are certain rules that I have to follow in order for that XML document to be valid, right? Or the better word is to be well formed. So in XML has to be valid or well formed. Now, what do you mean by valid or well formed? Meaning that XML document has to follow some rules. And so now the question is, what are those rules? Now, there are a bunch of rules depending on, one of the rules is if you open a tag, this is an element or a tag. If you open a tag, you have to close that tag. If you don't close the tag, this document is not well formed. And if it is not well formed, at least from a web service point of view, it rejects that document. So you've got to close that, right? So now it's a well-formed document because every element that I have opened, I am closing that element, right? Now, this is one of the rules. The other rule is case matters. So if I have tester and I have this, now from the point of reading it, it makes sense that, okay, Paul is a tester. Well, this is a tester and this is a tester. But from the machine's point of view, it will reject this document because it says that, hey, it's not adhering to the rules of XML, which is it's not a well-formed document. Why it is not well-formed? Because it is failing the rule, one of the rule, and that is the case does matter. So if the element is uppercase T, this has to be uppercase T, right? Okay, now the other thing is in an XML document, you have something called a root element. So these are, let's say, testers, right? These are testers, and so here I have to have the end of this testers. Now this, I have bunch of group of testers here. Individual tester are here, but they're all part of this as a testers. So testers is a parent of this tester. So what XML rules say that if you have a bunch of elements which are nested, right, which are like inside, this element is inside another element, which is testers. So it allows you that, but there must be a unique parent of all this, right? Meaning that there cannot be like testers and then I have something here and then I have something in here. Let's say automated and let's say this is I don't know that and automated. Now that's fine. This is it is allowed. But now notice that this is kind of like orphan in the sense that it doesn't have a parent, right? It doesn't have a parent. Now testers to a certain extent as an element, right? It, because of the fact that it's not unique, outside it there is another child. That means that there must be a parent for this, for automated or for testers. So there is a unique node that encapsulates, that holds all other child nodes, and that unique node is called the root node. So I have to have, let's say, project, right? And this project is the parent or the root node, and inside this project I am having lots of data, and this data is, let's say, about the testers, and there's also something called an automated, and we don't know what that is, automated. So we are thinking from a human's perspective that this is an automated tester. Not necessarily, right? So it all depends on how you describe the data. So you can describe the data if you wanted to say that this Meghna is an automated tester. You could have done this by going in here and still describing Meghna as a tester and using something called an attribute of this element. So the attribute would be, now you have, let's say, I don't know, I'm saying that experience is an attribute, and it can take a value of manual versus automated. So now if I go in here and here, if I say automated, now I am describing a little more about this tester through an attribute of this tester element. So what does that tell you? In XML, your elements are elements can have attributes, right? One or more attributes. So this is one attribute, and this is another attribute. Can I have let's say contract, right? Equals this is W2, right? So now we are saying that Rama works. He or she is a manual tester, and she works on a W2. Paul is again a manual tester. He works on I don't know 1099, right? Now, if you want to know a little bit more, I mean, I know Paul, right, is what? I mean, I know Paul is, right? Gender would describe that. Now, if I originally come from India, right? This is an Indian name, right? Forget about Paul, who might not have much idea about what this name as a gender represents. I lived there in that country for like 23 years, but I still don't know whether this can be a man or a woman, right? So if I have something like that, it would help me a little bit about whether it is in this name, and correct me if I'm wrong, can go for both that and that, right? I mean, there are certain names like that can go. So this will describe a little bit more. So attributes describe more about the data. So in an XML document, what you have is basically any XML document is a group of tags or elements, and there are tags which will basically describe some data through the attributes, describe the data more through the attributes. Now, there is a parent or the root element here. All right. Now, we can keep going about XML, but I'm not going to make it as an XML class. With this knowledge, I think we will have some help in understanding this, because what you see here is it's all XML. Right? Now, do I expect you to understand each and everything about what is in here? Not necessarily, but we will be able to make some good sense about what is in here. Now, if I tell you, like, looking at this, do you have some idea of what it is? You probably, let's say if I take out this line, you say that, yeah, I think I have some idea about it. This document is talking about testers, and you are defining some 4 testers, 1, 2, 3, 4 testers, and you are telling us about some more details about these testers, right? So this can be an XML document. This is an XML document. Now, likewise, this is an XML document. This also will describe more about what is in there. But how am I going to understand this document? The way I'm going to understand, of course, if this class, let's say, is all about XML, I would take 3 or 4 2-hour sessions to make you understand about every little bit over here, right? But since this is not an XML class, this is a SoapUI class. Now I gotta give it to you in a way that it is you could quickly look into this document, and it should make sense to you, and it should give you a complete idea of what it is. And the way I can do that is by starting off this right on the top and saying that this is an XML document. In here, what you see up here, right, which is WSDL, and in here it's basically the definitions of WSDL. This is a root node. So meaning that this will exist once, and if you open it, somewhere in this document, this should be closed. And they have to be nested properly, meaning that WSDL definitions, if it is the start, then everything else should be enclosed in it, and the end of the document should be somewhere at the end of it. And if you go and look at it, the last and the final one, you see that it is end of WSDL, end of WSDL definitions. So what it is this document, the root element of this is WSDL definitions. So everything is a part of the WSDL definition. So if I collapse it, so it is telling me right now, if you look at it, it is telling me having the fact that you are seeing a plus here, that tells me that, okay, this is XML document that has lot of information, and WSDL is the root node in it. How do I know that there's a lot of information? Because I see a plus sign here. So if I need to look into what is that information that is going to be in it, or what are the other elements that are going to be a part of it, then I have to expand it. So it's right now it's in the collapse mode, so I have to expand it. So once I expand it, I see that there's a huge amount of stuff in here. Now, in order for me to understand what it is, I have to start collapsing. So let me collapse. This WSDL is another WSDL types. WSDL definition is the parent one. Inside WSDL definitions is something called WSDL types, right? Without knowing what it is, let me just collapse it. Then there is something called WSDL message name, right? And if you see, there are many message names. So this is one, this is another one. So let me just keep collapsing them, and bear with me when I do that, because I'm making a point that will help you understand. Okay, so all the message WSDL types are there, WSDL messages are there, all WSDL messages are collapsed. Then comes the WSDL port type. Let me collapse that, WSDL port type. Then comes the WSDL binding, collapse that. There's one more binding. And then comes service. Let me collapse that, right? Okay, now it is in a reasonable size that I can start to make some sense of it, right? When I saw it the first time, like something like this, if you look at it, it's like, and it keeps going, and then you don't have an idea of what is in there. Now, in order for you to understand it, bring it to a state that is that makes us humanly possible to understand or parse this document and make some sense out of it. So in a nutshell, if I have to explain you about WSDL document, right, will have a root node, right? And coming back here, sometimes the data can be represented like what we are seeing in here. So this is a project, there's a testers inside it, right? So I can also say that I can append, let's say, a company name and say Bank of America, right? So I can say Bank of America, right? And I can say here Bank of America. So this is saying that, okay, this is Bank of America, Bank of America, Bank of America. But in Bank of America, it's a project, and this is the testers information. These are individual testers, something like that. So likewise, its WSDL is prefixed to all of them. But if you look into the actual ones, we have in a WSDL document, any WSDL document, you will have information about definitions, right? So there is definitions, and then there is types, right? And then there is message, right? And then there is port type, and then finally there is binding and service. Okay, so if you basically see, these are 5 items, right? And in fact, everything is enclosed as a part of the definition. So more importantly, these 5 items are more important, right? And one by one, I'm going to take you into it and then tell you which out of this 5 represents your A, and which represents B, and which represents C, right? Okay, so first of all, when you are talking about WSDL, you're talking about the data inside the WSDL in the form of definitions, and the data is about the types, about the message, port type, binding, and service. So each one represents something. So if I go into the service, if I expand the service here, if you look into it, this is the service, right? If I expand it, now notice inside the service when I expand, you have a WSDL port name, right? And again, a WSDL port name, right? So it's kind of like redundant. So I'm going to take one at a time right now so that I understand like what's the difference here between these two. So if I, just for the sake of easy readability, if I take it into a notepad and if I paste it into a notepad, and let's say if I do a word wrap, right? Okay, so here you have okay, so as you can see, some information here is repeating. So we're gonna we start off with WSDL service. We have to end WSDL service, right? So that's that. Inside WSDL service, I have WSDL port, right? And I have something called SOAP address and location. And then, so this WSDL port, if I start, I have to end WSDL port. So there is, you can see I'm going to be starting off from the same point as where we left off in the previous class, meaning that we were working on the sale test case. And as you